WPRS HD3 Waldorf and worldwide at WOLDCnews.com.
The views and opinions of the following show do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of News Talk 1450 WOL, Radio 1 Incorporated, or their management.
Fuller Jr., good morning, sir. How are you feeling today?
Good morning. I'm still learning.
And so are we. We hope to learn some more stuff with you this morning. You know, when I told folks that you come on, they asked me to ask you a question because you talk about white supremacy and the system of white supremacy. They want to know, is there a black supremacy, or is that is that sort of backwards?
That's logic. That's not logical. You can't have white supremacy and black supremacy on the same planet at the same time. That's impossible. You throw that out the window immediately. That can't be done. You can't have two supremes unless you're talking about a singing group. But if you're talking about power, supreme is supreme. And among the people of planet Earth, the most powerful people on planet Earth are those white people who believe in white supremacy. That's why it's called white supremacy. And that's an accurate name. A lot of things don't have accurate names. But whomever put that title out there for a people's conduct told the truth. Because here in the year 2022, all of the evidence shows that people who mistreat people based on color are the most powerful people on the planet. I'm going to repeat that again because that's what it means. Words have meanings. People who mistreat people in the year 2022, the most powerful people, the most powerful form of mistreatment among the people of planet Earth in the year 2022 are the people who are called or sometimes call themselves, but the refined ones don't, white supremacists and are racists. These are the most powerful people in every area of activity that has ever appeared in recorded history up to this time among the people of planet Earth. Now, that statement is either true or false. If you look at the 9 areas of activity, economics, what people, you can always find out what the truth is by questions and answers. That's the only way to the truth. So the question is, are they the people who call themselves white supremacists and are known by the title white supremacists or racists, are they the most powerful people on planet Earth among people in the year 2022? Yes or no? I'm saying, based on evidence and logic, yes. So let's look at the 9 areas of activity. Economics. Who runs to whom? When you start talking about, I want some money. Do white people run to black people and say, please give me some money? Or is it the other way around? Black people going to white people. Do black people have money that is more powerful than what you call white money? That's just on money, since black people are always talking about money, money, money. We need money. We need to have Black Wall Street. We need to have this. Who are they going to get it from if they want some right now, if they want some right this minute? Who are the most powerful people when it comes to money? Who are the most powerful people? Now, economics basically is not just about money. It's about the use of time and energy. who tells people how to use their time and energy and or forces them to more than those white people who believe in white supremacy? Talking about economics, just one category. There are 9 categories, which, that I use. Actually, you can say there are thousands of categories of people's activity, but I think 9 is a good overlay. So let's go to the second area of activity.
I tell you what, hold that thought right there, Neely Fuller Jr. We're going to take a quick break, and then I'll let you go through the 9 areas, the following 8 areas of activity. Also, author in Cleveland wants to speak with you. Folks, you too can join this conversation with Neely Fuller Jr. Reach out to us at 800-450-7876. Your phone calls in 4 minutes on 1010 WOLB in Baltimore. In the DMV, we're rolling on FM 95.9 and AM 1450 WOL, where information is power. And good morning once again, family. 21 minutes after the top of the hour with our guest, Neely Fuller Jr., just explaining his tome on racism, white supremacy, or the system of racism, white supremacy, I should say. Before he left, he said there are 9 areas of activity that are covered in the racism, white supremacy issue. So you mentioned number 1, so let's move on to number 2, Neely Fuller.
Number 2 is education. Black people, as we speak right now, babies in their arms, trying to cross great bodies of water, storms coming up, dozens of them, hundreds of them sometimes, falling into the water. They're black babies in their arms. They're clinging to them, trying to keep them from drowning. But everybody on the boat drowns, except the people who have probably thrown together some type of sponsorship of trying to get these people from one place to another. And where is the place they're coming from? They're coming from their homeland, they call it. But what is prompting them in order to get that second area of activity? Education. They are leaving their quote unquote homelands, wherever they are, if they are people of color, and saying, I got to get somewhere with my children so that we can have a better life, because I can't learn anything where I am. There's nobody to teach me anything that's worth knowing, even though I have a homeland. So I have to go where? Which way did the white people go? That's happening right this minute, according to the information I've received. Not the other way around. Not white people saying, I got to go somewhere. Find some black people. I got to find some people with color in their skin to teach me something. I don't know how to do anything. My children are starving. I don't know how to keep them from starving. Well, you came from a land, you said. Yeah, but I don't know anything. I don't have anything in my head. All of these magic things. I have to find the magic people, and they're all white. They cause magic to happen. It fascinates me. They give me things that glitter. They give me shiny things that I'd like to get enough money to buy. They have this and they have that. They have great this and great that, and great tall buildings that I've never seen before. Take me away from all these little straw huts and whatnot and shacks, and take me somewhere where people know how to do something. Everywhere where I am, people just know how to kill each other. And that's all. Now, I got to get out of here. Get out of here and go where? Go where the white people are. Listen to me. I'm desperate. And that's what I see in the area of education when it comes to dark-skinned people, unless I've been misinformed. I always say I'm still learning, because I'm among those people. If I'm really serious and I want something, I better be looking for some white people somewhere Okay? That's Neely Fuller. I know that for a fact. Nobody else will teach me that. Okay? Same in the area of the third area, entertainment. Somebody wants to be big time in entertainment, better be looking for somebody white, unless I've been misinformed. Labor, law, politics, religion, sex. Now, tell me how to, I understand there are new varieties of sex and all like that. You better, hey, the white people tell you all about that. The white supremacists, not just any white people. The white people who believe in white supremacy can tell you black people what kind of sex to have. And they can put you at the head of their parade, which is what they do, because they got their own agenda for the different varieties of sex that you are going to be introduced to. It's going to make you something that you haven't been before, something that will really fascinate you. You people need to be fascinated more by something other than just so worn-out sexual stuff. We got new stuff for you. We got stuff you never heard of. And in the last area of activity, war. Anybody start shooting anywhere. If you look and find black people running around barefoot, they got an AK-47. AK-47 usually means what? White people have been here or you've been in contact with them or something, because you don't produce no AK-47s. None of you black people. Some non-white people do produce some of them, but they got them, the design from somebody white, if they tell the truth. Those are the 9 areas of activity. Now, what I have done is either tell the truth or not. Because you always start with the truth if you want to solve problems, according to compensatory counter-racist logic.
All right. And thank you for sharing that with us. 28 after the top there. As I mentioned, Arthur in Cleveland has a question for you, Neely Fuller Jr. Arthur's on line 1. Arthur, a question for Neely Fuller.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much. It's Austin. But thank you, everybody. And good morning to Mr. Nelson and to Mr. Fuller. I have a question for you, Mr. Fuller, in regards to the N-word all across the system of white supremacy. And my question for you, Mr. Fuller, is could you explain to the non-white listening audience, and particularly to the black listening audience, why it is illogical and outright silly for black people to think that the N-word is a title of endearment all over the world under a system worldwide called white supremacy?
Well, yeah,
thanks, Austin.
Right. Yeah. According to what I have written, when a person uses a word, any word, including the N-word, you ask that specific person, not a person standing next to him, you ask that person, what does that word mean? Words have meanings. Words are nothing but tools, like a pair of pliers or a saw or a screwdriver. And tools are designed to accomplish a certain task. I think most people don't think of words as being tools, T-O-O-L-S. Every word in any language is a tool. So it comes down to, what do you need this word for in order to accomplish what? Because anybody that's ever worked with a tool, you don't pick up a pair of pliers to do the job of a screwdriver. You pick up a tool that will do the job that you want done. So if you're going to use the word, the so-called N-word, what job do you want done? And is that the best tool for it? You might have 100 questions, but you always ask the person who uses the term. Now, I use the term, I have it listed in my word guide, which people can get by going to producejustice.com. and you'll see it there. The word is in there, and I have my own definition for it, because I say what gives the word power, because most people consider it a very powerful word that does a whole lot of damage. Words don't do damage. People do damage. No kind of word. Words don't mean anything until you make them mean something. So what does word really mean? Well, the power of that particular word, the N word, according to the conclusion I came to many decades ago, I looked up different definitions for it and all like that, and mostly what jumped out at me was it's supposed to be a derogatory term for a person of color. But here's where the power comes from. Why has this word lasted so long as a powerful word in the English language? And causes people to get upset, causes all kinds of people to lose their jobs, or people to get a job, depending on who that person is. Why is that word so powerful? Among all the other words you can have, it's because it doesn't have a definition. That's what I discovered. Nobody told me that. Because when I would ask, what does it really mean? People were all over the place. I was hearing all kinds of things. I looked it up in different dictionaries. In fact, there's a book that has that word as the title of the entire book. I never read it, but it came out back in the 1960s. I was trying to get a copy. It was a black person that wrote it. But I don't know what's in the book. But it's a thin book, but it had a lot of pages in it when he held it up on television, black and white television at that time. I don't remember the author's name, but that's the name of the book, where he just went through all the different variations and whatnot, he said, that was in that book of what it meant. But I have it in my textbook, and what I say it is. I don't know whether I'm permitted to say that on air now, since black people have kind of banned the use of the term, which I say the way you ban the use of that term is that you stop people from using it, and the way you stop people from using the term is that you make it work for you. But I don't say that it's a term of endearment. But if you look at the textbook for victims of white supremacy, you see how to use that term. I use it, and I'm going to reveal this. I use it to describe myself, because the power that word has, it didn't have a definition, but I gave it one. And when I gave it the definition that I say reveals the truth, the white supremacists will not want me to use that word to describe myself.
Right. And hold that thought right there, Neely Fuller Jr., because we're going to take a short break here, and I'll let you expound on that, on the N-word. And the author you're looking for is Dick Gregory, that a book of the title of that name. Anyway, 26 away from the top of the hour, family. We'll take a short break so we get caught up in the news, traffic, and weather in our different cities. We'll be back in 4 minutes with Neely Fuller Jr. right here in Baltimore on 1010 WOLB, in the DMV on FM 95.9 and AM 1450. WOL, the information is power.
Now back to the Carl Nelson Show.
Hey, good morning, family. Thank you for waking up with us this morning and traveling. You're on your way to work or school on this first day of December. Our guest is Neely Fuller Jr. He's discussing his tome on racism, white supremacy, or the system of racism, white supremacy, if you will. And I got to remind you, got to listen very, very keenly to what Neely Fuller says, because he uses logic to prove his points. Before we go back to, I want to remind you that Brother Obi's having a press conference discussing a book that his dad wrote. The book is titled Destroy This Temple, The Voice of Black Power in Britain. It was originally released in 1971, and now it's been re-released by Black Classic Press. And Obi Jr. is also written the new introduction for this book, and they have a press conference on 1 o'clock Eastern time and on Friday. So if you just, I posted on the website, just go there and you can click on the link and you can hear about this press conference that's taking place on Friday at 1 o'clock with Brother Obi on the book that his dad did, the original copy, and now it's been re-released. Anyway, also Friday, it's Open Phone Friday again. Give you a chance to free your mind and reach out to us, express yourself. We start at 6 a.m. right here in Baltimore on 1010 WOLB, and also in the DMV on FM 95.9 and AM 1450 WOL. Neely Fuller Jr., I'll let you finish your response to our question from, I think it says Austin was his name, calling from Cleveland on the N-word.
Well, here it is. From me, of what I have in the Word Guide, the Compensatory Counter-Racist Word Guide. As I said before, we can make words work for you or against you. Black people have to learn that. We usually think that we're pretty good with words, particularly the younger generation that write songs and whatnot. But think in terms of you dominate words. No word should ever dominate you. A word is nothing but a tool, like a pair of pliers, a saw, a hammer. You pick it up, you look at it, and you may say, well, I can't find a word, or rather a tool, to do the job that I want done. You're doing carpentry work. You can't find a tool to do that work. So a word is just like a carpenter's tools. So if you don't find one, you make up one. The white supremacists understand that. They are the masters of language. Okay? So we have to become masters of the language that we use, and we don't have to learn a new language. That's not necessary. Or go back and find one language that has become semi-extinct or something like that. You hear some black people say, we got to find our language. You can take English language, because that's just a word anyway, even the two words English language, and make it whatever you want. You can take the very words that the white supremacists invented or used or borrowed from somebody else or stole from somebody else, if you want to put it that way. It's just a tool. That's all it is. And you fashion it to do the job that you think ought to be done. So in closing, one answer to this question, the definition, according to what I have in my word guide, which you can get by going to producejustice.com, of the N-word, if you want to use the N-word to define yourself, you shouldn't call anybody that except yourself. I mean, unless you get somebody else's permission to call them that. But the N-word, a compensatory definition, this is one I made up. Very simple. Victim of white supremacy. So if anybody asks me if I am one, I'll say absolutely. And that's what I'm trying my best not to be. But right now, it's like saying I'm a prisoner of war, because that's what I am. I'm that too, victim of white supremacy, and you have to be that in order to be the N-word. If you're not a victim of white supremacy, you are not that word. It's impossible for you to be that word. That can't be done. Now, a lot of black people say, well, I'm not no victim of no white supremacy. Well, then you're not that word. But I am a victim, and they owe me. Who they? The white supremacists. Becoming the N-word is a process. When they made a victim out of me, that's when I became the N-word. No person is born the N-word. You're not born that. You're born a person. You're born a black person, non-white person. You're born a male or female, or most of the major categories of people. But nobody is born the N-word unless they are born victims of white supremacy. Then you fit that. That's the only definition that makes sense. All other definitions, including all the ones in the dictionary, make no sense at all. If you don't believe it, just go back and check it out. Get the biggest encyclopedia you can find and see, after you read all the definitions of that N-word in there, do any of them make sense? They don't. I've been there. I've already looked.
All right, Neely Fuller, 13 away from the top of the hour. Tweet question. A tweeter wanted you to explain why black people cannot be racist.
Because you can't have two supremes, unless I gave the illustration before, unless you're talking about a singing group. You might have 4 or 5, but that's a trade term. That's what they decided to use it for. But if you're talking about categories of people by something they call race and or racism, there's only one type of racism. Just one. Because there's only one race, and that's the white race. Some people say human race. That makes no sense at all. Human race. What are you racing against? Being human? You don't race against being human. You might race to be human, but you're racing against a world that is inhumane. Now, you can put it in that context if you wish to, but there's no such thing as a black race. It's a white race, because race is racism. It serves no other purpose, being a member of a race. Name a purpose that are being a member of a race, or a person will join a race, which is what you have to do. What would you join a race for within the context of racism? You join a race in order to practice racism. That's all it's good for. And what is racism? Mistreating people on the basis of color. According to who? Neely Fuller? According to logic. Always follow logic. Always follow logic. Don't follow people. Follow logic. Logic rules the universe and all other universes. If there's any out there, you can't go incorrect. You'll always be correct when you follow logic. Why? Because people make mistakes. Mathematics doesn't. That's why it's called math. That's why it's so difficult. It's precise. You can't fool with math. Everything that is math is logic, and everything that is logic is math. Meaning, it's absolute. It's absolute. Water is wet. Fire will burn. We have evidence of that. Always follow that. And don't let anybody talk you out of it by using what? Fancy words. That's what the white supremacists do. They go around slapping all kind of labels that they want, that work for them, on everything. A cow is not a cow until they say so. That's in their world. And they'll put this off on everybody on the planet of color, and we are bought into it. Hook, line, and sinker. But it's not our fault, because we were raised by them, if you can call it raising.
10 away from the top of the hour, Neely Fuller Jr., folks. And I just admonish you to listen very keenly because he uses logic, cause and effect. Neely Fuller, you said that we're in a prison. We're prisoners of war. Can you expound on that for us?
Yes, we all need to, according to what I advocate, expound on that because it's the truth. Look at all the qualifications for being a prisoner of war. We meet them. We are way over the top. We were born prisoners of war. Everybody who's on the planet now, of color, you were born into the system of white supremacy. That's the name of the war, prison. That's the name of all political systems. You hear about communism, capitalism, socialism, all these other isms. The system of white supremacy is all of them. See, that's what has confounded people. Well, I used to be a member of the Communist Party, but then, I got disillusioned, and we're all over the place. But, if you're a person of color, it's real simple. You're a victim of white supremacy. You are a prisoner of war. You are born in prison. And the prison masters is every white person that believes in and practices white supremacy. It's real simple. It's not complicated at all. But that's another thing about the white supremacists. They have gone all over the world and taken very, 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 very simple things and made them complicated to the nth degree for black people. And then say, come and learn from me. I'll teach you something. And we don't have a choice since we're under their authority anyway. And they teach us how to go around in a big circle. That's what they do. And they laugh all the way. They say, I got this black person by the nose, and I'm pulling them in the direction I want them to go. And we're just going in a circle. I even have a term for it in my word guide. I call it psycho-racism. That's why we keep, here in the year 2022, black people all over the world are looking up. And it's what somebody said to me the other day, deja vu, meaning this has all happened before. Yeah, well now, how about that?
Right. And hold that thought right there, Neely. I'll let you expound on that issue on the other side of this short break. We're 7 minutes away from the top of the hour. We've got to take another look at the traffic and weather in our cities. Folks, you want to join this conversation with Neely Fuller, reach out to us at 800-450-7876. We'll take your calls in 4 minutes on 1010. WOLB in Baltimore, from racism and white supremacy. And I keep telling you, you've got to listen very, very keenly because it uses metaphor, it uses logic, cause and effect to explain what's going on with us as a people. The reality of racism and white supremacy is here, and he says we're all in a prison, and it's a mental prison. It's a prison of your mind. That's why we always say free your mind. Neely Fuller Jr., you say we're all prisoners of war. Is this why we form cliques and oppose each other, fight each other, but we never go after the warden or the prison guards? And if you can tell the audience who those factions are.
Yeah, yes, sir. That's why if you study this, there are a lot of black people who have been in what you call a prison. If you want to understand white supremacy, all you have to do is just understand a prison. I mean, and just think back, if you're in there now, in some lockup somewhere and all like that, just look how it's run. The system of white supremacy is a worldwide prison system for non-white people. That's what the planet is in the year 2022. We're all in prison if you got color in your skin. Regardless of walls or bars or the different styles, these are just styles of imprisonment. Black people who are sitting behind desks are in prison. I mean, in corporate headquarters, they're in prison. If you're a person of color, you're under the system of white supremacy. There's only one government on the planet, and that's the name of that government. It's not the American government. It's not the African government. It's not the Asian government. There's no such thing as the United States of America. Now, I'm making all kinds of statements here that, who is that fool talking like that? No such thing as the United States of America. There isn't, which I would testify under oath. You can't have the system of white supremacy and the United States of America on the same planet at the same time. That's impossible. If I was on a, what you call, witness stand right now, I'd say I'd borne witness to that. And let's go through the details. Let's follow the logic. I don't care what kind of judge you got in there or anything. I'm either telling the truth or I'm lying. Or I'm just talking crazy. One or the other, and it can't be all of them. Telling the truth, and I'm saying I'm telling the truth. You can't have the system of white supremacy and have something called America on the same planet at the same time. That is impossible. You can't have the system of white supremacy and have some other master system, prison system, on the same planet at the same time. The system of white supremacy, racism, is a prison system. And racism is white supremacy. White supremacy is racism. There's no other kind of racism on planet Earth. I'm making a lot of statements here, but I'm making them kind of fast because I have to, because we got limited time on radio. This is not some drawn-out 3-day seminar. So I'm either making true statements or I should be taken off the radio. I shouldn't be on Mr. Carl Nelson's radio or Mr. Cat or Mrs. Kathy Hughes' radio or any other radio. Shouldn't be on my own. If I'm making false statements, that's what the white supremacists do. They lie every day, all day. They're the greatest liars that the world has ever produced. And they produce themselves in lying. They became experts at it. That's their major brand, not telling the truth, not telling the truth about history. And black people have come right behind them and not tell the truth about history either, because the white supremacists encourage black people to use, when black people talk about history, the white supremacists will bankroll it if you just use your history to brag. But if you use your history to solve problems and be willing to admit that black history, like all history, is not what it should be. Now, I'm not talking about the telling of it. That's another part of, being truthful and fighting racism. We got to be willing to tell the truth about everybody, and nobody has come up to the standard that this world deserves. No black people. So all this bragging about black history and having Black History Month that we use to brag, that's a white supremacist thing. History is not supposed to be used to brag, but that's what we use it for. Strutting up and down the street, drum majoring and all of this, bragging about Afro history and this, that, and other. That needs to be stopped. According to what? Logic. That's not the way to solve problems, bragging on what you have done. Roll up your sleeves and get all of this mess cleaned up that needs doing. Any people that have a people among them that have committed murder are not a people that you brag on. Let's get that straight. Right out the gate. That stops the bragging right there. Do black people kill black people anywhere on the planet in 2022? And the answer is yes. According to logic, we lost bragging rights right there. Just on that alone. One black person killing another one. All of the bragging rights go out the window. I mean, the whole history of black people goes out the window when it comes to bragging. Just on one murder. Because it ain't supposed to happen, that's why. According to what? Neely Fuller? No, according to logic. Where do you get the right to brag? Shutting down the street, grinning and bragging and beating drums and talking about we are a great African people. And the murder rate goes through the roof everywhere on the planet. You are not a civilized person if you have one among you, or rather, you're not a civilized people, and just one among you commits murder. That's impossible for you to be civilized and have that. The white supremacists can't brag either. So everybody's lost bragging rights. Nobody on the planet should brag about anything. Why? Just on the murder rate alone. Nobody's qualified. Now, I hope I didn't lose the question there.
No. Interesting, because as you mentioned, that we're all in a prison, and prison of our mind. Is there an escape route, or do we need? Is what we call the code? Is that the escape route out of these mental?
Yes, sir. I hope I didn't cut you off too fast. But in answer, yes, sir. The white supremacists are successful at what they do. Do we ever ask that question? How is it that they push everybody around and it's like magic? And man, everybody's just bowing and scraping. All the dark-skinned people, black, brown, red, yellow, people of color, we call it, just bowing and begging. And how do they do that? They have a code, that's why. Non-white people, we have codes. Everybody has codes. Codes means just a way of going about doing things. But we brag about our raggedy codes. They're not designed to handle white supremacy. People handle a lot of things. Black, brown, red, yellow people, we handle. We grow lettuce. We know how to grow rice. It's a code for growing rice. It's a code for growing lettuce. Doesn't make any difference what Neely Fuller says. If you're going to grow lettuce, you just learn how to grow lettuce, what the code is for growing lettuce. And you know what? Eureka. You're going to have lettuce. Why? You're following a code for doing so. What black people, all the talk we are doing, we have never had a code for handling white supremacy. Nobody even attempts to have one. We just go around talking about how proud we are to be black. And we're all prisoners of war. When all we have to do is just get a code, which is how you do anything. We have never even attempted to have a code to deal with the system of white supremacy. We have a hand-wringing code. Sit on the side of the road and wring our hands and say, I hope that one of these days, it goes away. And we'll do a little marching. We come up with a new slang or a slogan, and slangs or slogans do serve a purpose, but they're like the titles of books. You have to have some filling in a pie. Slogans and slangs, Black Lives Matter, they serve a purpose. I'm not qualified to criticize nothing like that. They serve a constructive purpose. But you got to have a plan, a code that follows that. Otherwise, you just got to come up with a new slang next year. Black people come up with a new slang or a new slogan about every, I'd say, 12 to 18 months. Black Lives Matter is one of the biggest we've had lately. We shall overcome. Now we're recycling it all, but no plan. Books without titles. Books with titles, but with nothing in the book. Blank pages. No code. No plan for doing anything that deals with white supremacy. I'm trying to write one. People have even asked me about the 2 volumes that I have out here. They say, Fuller, is this the whole code? And I said, there's no such thing as a whole code anywhere in the universe for anything until all of the problems are solved. Then you have a whole code. That applies to white people, too. All problems solved? They don't think so. There's no evidence that all problems are solved. I don't think so. I think most black people say, hey, I ain't even got one problem solved. I ain't even got bus fare to get across town to try to answer the ad for that job. So we got problems, but we don't have a code for dealing with them. We need one. And all we have to do is be serious about coming up with one and stop just trying to come up with new slogans. Slogans serve a purpose, but they get to be backed up with a code. A code is a plan for getting it done. Getting it done. That should be our mantra. The doing part. We philosophize. We're the greatest philosophers in the world. When it comes to this, we make some flourishing speeches. Some of the best, if not the best. But somebody says, okay, where's the plan? Somebody from the back of the crowd, after 3-day seminar, everybody all dressed up. The table is loaded with food. We can put on a show.
We're coming up on a break real soon. Yeah, when we come back, though, we'll come up on a break real soon. If you can tell us, how can we construct or how can we create a code? And do we need a code for the 9 areas of activity that you shared with us as well? Because I think he says that's what will get us out of this racism, white supremacy system if we have a code, and how do we stay on code? Because a lot of times people say, they use the term, he's not on code, you got to stay on code, but they don't actually know what they're saying. So if you can explain all of that for us after we take the short look at this break and take the short look at the traffic and weather in our cities at 15 after the top of the hour. Our guest, folks, is Neely Fuller Jr. You got a question? Hit us up at 800-450-7876. We'll take your phone calls in 4 minutes. Right here in Baltimore on 1010 WOLB, in the DMV, we're on FM 95.9 and AM 1450. WOL, where information is power.
Council.
Now back to the Carl Nelson Show.
Good morning again, family. 21 minutes after the top of the hour. Our guest is Neely Fuller Jr. and talking about racism, white supremacy. He says the code is the answer. And so, and again, let me just tell before he starts, you got to listen very, very keenly, folks. You just can't listen with one ear now. Both of them ears working, and you got to try to understand what he's saying, because he uses logic, cause and effect to prove his points. He says that we're basically prisoners of war. We're all in a prison. That's why it explains why some of us hate each other, fight against each other. The shootings that our young people doing against each other, because he says the issue is we need to get a code, so we stand on code so we don't attack each other. We figure a way out of this system. So Neely Fuller Jr., how do we fashion a code? How do we first agree on a code?
Well, just like gang members understand the principle, and that's how they become gangs. They agree on certain terms, and they agree with things that are already here in the universe, but it's all very destructive. I mean, in what you call the gang or the gangsters, and black people pick that up from the white supremacists because the system of white supremacy is a gangster operation, the biggest and most efficient that the world has ever seen, most powerful. So if all things, not just gangs, But anything that's efficient has a code, and an electrical code. Sometimes an electrician will open up a metal box hanging on a wall, and he'll say, "Oh, this circuitry. Oh, I see where the problem is. It's not your whole wiring system is not up to code." And so the person says, "What do you mean? Up to what code?" Say, "Well, a wiring system works a certain way. That's why your lights are not working. There's an absolute way of having a wiring system in this building, sir or ma'am. And from what I'm looking at as a master electrician, meaning I have mastered understanding this code, what you are looking at, which you do not understand, I understand it. And I can look at all these wires, the way they're connected with each other. You're not going to have any lights as long as these wires are hooked up, one thing to another. This maze of stuff that you're looking at is not according to the code that it was put here for. They are mismanaged. So I am going to manage this box, called a circuit box or whatever you call it by. And so he or she begins to move the wires around. And eureka! Next thing you know, lights come on. That's all a code is. Well, what do you mean, Fuller? That's all a code is. A code is something that works. Once you see something doesn't work, you know it's not up to code. That's the criteria. Not a person standing there looking at it. If you're trying to get that lock to work, you got to have the correct key. That key is what you call coded. People who are locksmiths will say, well, you got to have the correct key. You can try that key you got. It's not working. I mean, forever. It's not going to work forever. You keep doing the same thing over and over again. You pick, yeah, but it's shiny and it's a key, and it's the one that I got, and you stand there and start crying sooner or later. But the person that knows something about a key has a code. This is not the correct key because it's not the correct code for this particular lock. This key works perfectly with a lock that's coded for this key, sir or ma'am. Now, I will look in my master ring here, go through it here and see what I got. Oh, here we are. Now, this key is coded for this lock on this door, and I will demonstrate. And they do. People who know about key codes. They're called locksmiths. The white supremacists have everything that they do coded. So they know it's going to work before they even try it. They got a code for it. Here comes that black guy that's giving us all this trouble. Let's pull out the white code for this black good for nothing and run it on him. And it will work because we have tested it and it works every time. That's what a code is. Every time you do it, it works. The white supremacists understand that principle. Black people understand the principle. When it comes to electronic things, a lot of black people know electronics and whatnot. A lot of black people know plumbing. But they had to learn it. They had to first make a decision that they had to learn it. But when it comes to a counter-racist code. We have a racist code that dominates the entire world. We got a lot of black people that do a lot of thinking and write a lot of books, but nobody thinks of what do you do that will match what the white supremacists are doing. What do you say that every time they say it, what you're going to say is going to beat what they say, and you know it before you even do it. You sit back and wait for them to finish, and then when you start talking, everything that they say is wiped out. We don't have a code that does that, but they have a code that does that to us. And the only reason we don't have one, we just get as far as some slogans, and that's it. We go right back to doing and saying everything the same way we've always done it, and you say, that's what our ancestors did. Now, that is about the most illogical thing, non-logical thing than anybody can ever say. That's what my ancestors did. If our ancestors, going way, way back, would be here now and take a look, they say, you all haven't done anything different from what we were doing? That's how we got in the shape that we're in. That's why you're in the shape that you're in. Duh. You can't keep doing the same thing. Get a code that's up to date. Don't look to us. We failed. We were conquered by people who had a better code than us. Wake up. Do some logic. Be logical. I mean, you're not... You came behind us, and you're just as primitive as you can be. We were primitive people. You grow. There's such a thing called GROW. Growing means you don't do the same thing today that you did yesterday. If it is what? An improvement over what you did yesterday. So you clawing and scratching, trying to do the same stuff you were doing yesterday. Suppose we had done that. You wouldn't even be here. That's what our ancestors are saying from the grave. The silent scream, I call it. They're screaming at us. No, 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 no. Well, my ancestors, 10 million years ago, my ancestors, they did this. And my goodness, we were dumb. We were learning. You want to go back to that?
And hold that thought right there. There's a bunch of folks got questions for you, Neely Fuller Jr. 29 away from the top of the hour. Let me start with Anonymous calling from Maryland. Anonymous, your question for Neely Fuller Jr.?
Good morning. Thank you for sharing information. I wanted to know what was those specific codes. You asked them what exactly were those codes, and he talked about it in general, but he didn't give specific points of agreement. And so I would like to know what are those points of agreement that we could agree upon as it pertains to a code.
We can ask white people if you're talking about that, if I understand your question. See, we ask white people for everything that we want that's of any value anyway, because they have it all right? They don't have some of it, they have it all. No such thing as a black person owning anything. Nowhere on the planet Earth in 2022. I'm going to repeat that again. There's no such thing as a black person anywhere on planet Earth owning anything in the year 2022. Now, I either told the truth or I didn't. Because if you go according to logic, when somebody owns me, and the white supremacists own me, they own everything that I say that I own. That's nothing but logic. If I own you, and you say you own a house, it means I have you and the house. Why? Because I own you. See, that's mathematics. That's what you call just, I said, that's not numerical math. That's logic. The white supremacists do not want black people to be logical about anything. That's why we're in the shape that we're in, because we are bought into that. We run away from logic and talk about how we what? Feel. Feelings change every 5 minutes. Feelings are very unreliable. But logic is not. In answer to your question, we need a code, because a code means every time you do this and this and this, it works. Some basketball players are so good at playing basketball, they know before they even make the shot that it's going to work. Of course, they're codified to make baskets at that particular spot on the court. That's
right.
codified.
And hold that thought right there again. Yeah, hold that thought right again, because we got to take a short break and got a bunch of other folks got questions for you. 26 away from the top of the hour. I'll take our last look at the news, traffic, and weather in our cities. Folks who want to get in on this conversation with Neely Fuller Jr., reach out to us at 800-450-7876. Your calls in 4 minutes on 1010 WOLB in Baltimore. In the DMV, we're on FM 95.9 and AM 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Now back to the Carl Nelson Show.
And good morning again, family. 20 minutes away from the top of the hour with our guest, Neely Fuller Jr. Got a bunch of calls for you, Neely Fuller, from all across the country. So callers, if you can make the question short, appreciate it. And Neely Fuller, if you can make the answers, if possible, make them short as well. We'd also appreciate it. Let's get started. Let's go to Cliff. He's calling from Connecticut. He's on line 1. Cliff, your question for Neely Fuller Jr.
Thanks for taking my call. You had 2 previous guests on, and I'm saying this to make a point. First of all, Dr. Lumumba, and then you had Dr. Fox. And I raised the question, and I'm posing the same question to your guests. Can a black person be racist in this country, in America?
Obviously, no. Cliff wasn't listening. Do you want to repeat it again for him, Neely Fuller? Thanks, Cliff. Thanks for your call.
The answer is no. According to what? Logic. You can't have black people being racist. Black people can be counter-racist. Racism is all in place. And the definition of what a racist is. A racist is a white supremacist. And a white supremacist is a racist. Sometimes down through the years, people have said, well, we got white supremacy and we got racism. No, you don't. Racism is white supremacy. The white supremacists invented racism. Has anybody ever asked that question? Who invented racism? All the evidence shows it was the white supremacists. So they're the only racists. They invented racism. There's no such thing as races of people. They invented that. Why? Because anytime you invent something, it works for you.
All right, let's keep moving, Neely. 18 away from the top of the hour. Malik is in Georgia on line 3. Malik, your question for Neely Fuller Jr.
Good morning. I just want to keep this real quick because I don't have a question, but I want to honor Mr. Fuller and thank him because I started reading his book when it first came out in the 70s or the early 80s. And it's pretty much guided me to be able to function in this system. I retired a couple of years ago, and using the information that he provides, I was able to really study white people and kind of navigate myself throughout this system. And I also wanted to say one other thing that Dr. Clark said years ago, which applies to his code. Dr. Clark said that, Dr. Hendrik Clark, he said that the Romans would say every day at the Senate, Carthage must be destroyed. And he said they just said that all the time. And I think that might have been the beginning of their codes because they had decided what it is they wanted to do. And Carthage was their main adversary at the time. So I just want to say that, and thank you, Mr. Fuller.
All right. It gives you a chance. Let's go. Let's keep rolling here at 17 away from the top there. Glord is in Baltimore on line 2. Glord, your question for Neely Fuller Jr.
Yes, good morning, Professor Fuller Jr. I'm 82 years old, and when I was growing up, I was always told this. I was told that if anybody call you the N-word out of your name, I would always tell them they are one just like me. So it really didn't take with a lot of us, because if they call us the N-word, you one too. And I think the definition saying that is uncouth or whatever, but I can't recall what the definition was. But and also, too far as the code, I kind of been observing their code and like the tattoos. If you notice, because I remember like the motorcycle gang. And you watch on TV, all you see is tattoos, tattoos, tattoos. And I'm thinking that's their code. So if they dealing with people in their race, you know, and they got tattoos all over them, that's a code that they go by. And lastly, with us as a people, and knowing that all the problems that we are having, I think we need to be filtered, and so we know the do's and the don'ts, and create a code by being filtered, because we all messed up at this point, and I think that would be the only way that we can get on code or create a code. That's my take for today.
Thank you, Claude. There wasn't a question in there, so I wanted to keep moving. Let's go to Derek on line 4. Derek, your question for Neely Fuller Jr.
Yes, I'd just like to start off by saying first, I met Dr. Fuller at Essalon Bookstore back in 2001. Still have his autographed copy, carry with me every day in my trunk. As far as the code, he's absolutely right. The black code, the Negro code, was the laws that they put into place to govern us here in America. The Negro code was the Spanish for black. So they got a law that governs us. So every time we say that we black or Negro, they own us under that code. And that's why the police do what they do to us. Thank you, Dr. Fuller.
All right. You want to respond to that?
No, I didn't quite get it all what he was saying, but I appreciate his remark.
Well, if you can still hear me, Carl?
Yeah, I can still hear.
Okay.
Put in a question for him.
Okay, this is the question. Since they put those codes into effect, the Negro codes and the black codes back in the 1600s, what effect does it have on us today under law?
All right. Thanks, Derek. Neely, do you understand that question?
Yes, I think I do understand it. The white supremacist code is worldwide. I've heard of what they call the black codes and whatnot that some white people within a certain time frame came up with. But the white supremacist code began when the first white person on the planet came up with the idea that we need a system in which everybody classified as white would be dominant over everybody classified as non-white. Somebody came up with that idea. Now, some people said it goes back as far as 600 years ago. That's the usual ballpark. And then some people, some scholars who have dug deeper, said it's a minimum of 2,000 years. So in answer to that question, it comes down to one question. When did white supremacy actually begin? So my answer is I don't know.
All right, another tweet for you. It says, good morning. Could you ask Mr. Fuller, what does he think about reparations for black people?
Reparations for black people means repair. So it means different things to different people because different types of damage was done. So each and every black person, really, and I've talked to many black people about that, and black people have said that I don't agree with you, Mr. Fuller, on what you're saying from your viewpoint of reparations. So it means really, under what you call a democratic system, if we're going to talk about reparations, actually you're going to have a view, a codified structure for it, and come up with some type of agreement that most people will agree on what the repair is going to be for the damage is done. And who is going to collect for what? Now, I say the only reparations that seems logical to me is to eliminate the system of white supremacy and replace it with what? Replace it with a system of justice, an old idea. Meaning what? What is justice? Guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. I think that's the simplest and the fastest way and the most efficient way to settle this thing about reparations overnight. Not some long, drawn-out debate about this and that and other and all the details about who's going to collect what check on what date and how much is going to be on the check and whether grandmother's entitled to it more than somebody who's just newly born and all of this, because that's what it will get into. I'm just saying, eliminate the system of white supremacy. And then just go around and see who needs something, give it to them. Anything that's constructive that the person needs. And then look at that same person and say, is that person being mistreated in any kind of way, in any area of activity? And whatever mistreatment that person is receiving, stop it. Stop the mistreatment. So it's just two things when it comes to repairing anything. What is the problem? And you stop it. It's a problem. You just solve that person's problem. That's the repair. It doesn't get any better than that. Why not go for the best without a whole lot of debate about this, that, and other, and start talking about money? Because that money thing, all of it is going back to the white supremacists as long as you got white supremacy. Every cent of it. I mean, anybody who's using logic will know that at one glance. But it seems like nobody's even glanced at that. Take has a source. And it will go right back to its source.
Right, and we got 2 minutes left. So I wanted you to take this opportunity to tell you, the folks, how can they get a copy of the book? Because they hear you speak about it, but until they get, because it's a workbook, and still let's go through some of the exercises in there themselves. As you mentioned, one of our calls from, I forget what city he was, he read your book and he said he really appreciated it. He was calling from Georgia. So how can people pick up your copies of your book?
Go to producejustice.com. All the information is there. producejustice.com. Because that's ultimately what we're trying to produce. This thing that nobody has ever produced in recorded history. There's never been a system of justice in recorded history anywhere on the planet. Why? Where's the evidence? Because somebody is being mistreated every minute, everywhere. And somebody is not getting the help that they need every minute, everywhere. So justice has never existed. So that's what we want to replace the system of white supremacy with, a system of justice. And it's not as difficult as people think that it is. Because everything starts with a thought. The textbook for victims of white supremacy tells you some things to think about, like you never thought about before, and how to use what you think about to problem solve. That's what the books are for. If you are a person of color and you have problems and you're thinking about being serious about solving your problems, which is what everything starts with. It starts with the individual person. So the book will help you, not only to help yourself, but to help other people. It helps me. I consult my own book. Why wouldn't I? Why would I write a book that I wouldn't consult myself? I consult myself, and I use the stuff that's in my book, and I only use what works. And that's what I'm trying to get other people to do. Go to producejustice.com.
One more time?
producejustice.com.
All right. Thank you, Neely Fuller. Thank you for the work that you've done, and thank you for continuing to educate us on racism, white supremacy.
Well, I thank the people for listening and whatnot, because I have been done a favor, because that is a part of the code. I came to the conclusion that's my mission. I'm a prisoner of war. What is the mission of a prisoner of war? Not to be a prisoner of war. I mean, if they got any logic.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us, but we're running late. We've got to get out of here. As prisoners of wars, we'll continue to fight. Folks, stay strong, stay positive. Please stay healthy. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Open Phone Friday, right here on 1010 WOLB in Baltimore. If you're in the DMV, we're rolling on FM 95.9 and AM 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson.